Welcome to Let's Relieve Regret, the uplifting podcast where we talk about how to relieve what you're worrying about.
It can feel so good to finally let go. Let go of past hurts, let go of old grudges, let go of self-doubt, self-shame.
The thing is, we aren't always given the tools to let go. We're told to get over it, or it's time to move on. But how do we do that?
We will share our stories, tools, and strategies of how we let go to help you let go.
Let's begin. Hello, everybody. My name is Victoria Burcea, and I'm here with my co-host,
Shadoe Ball.
Welcome to the Let's Relieve Regret podcast, and we have a guest today. Welcome,
Hooray.
Alex.
Hi, guys. It's awesome to be here.
I'll full disclosure, Alex is my sister-in-law. And
Let's disclose that right off. Yes.
She listens to every podcast, so she's a fan, and we're really excited to have her on today. And she's also just an amazing person. She is a critical care and coronary care certified registered nurse. She specializes in cardiology. Up until recently, she worked with critically ill patients in the cardiac intensive care unit during the pandemic, everybody. She was part of the resuscitation team, so the Code Blue team, primary care, and in that critical illness ICU, again, during the pandemic. So we have a lot to thank her for. And she's also worked in other areas of medicine, but cardiology's always been her heart, pun intended. And she's a mom of two awesome boys, my nephews, and married to my husband's brother. She's currently working on her physical and mental recovery from being a nurse and all of the amazing work she's done. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit today.
Yes, we will.
So welcome. We're really happy to have you and really looking forward to having a great conversation and learning experience together.
Thank you.
And as always, we do a check-in. How is everyone feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? Shadoe, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10 today?
I'm going to go pretty high and say 9 today.
Whoa, wee.
I know. I think it's just I'm on the uplift. Like last weekend was kind of rough, and then I started my period on Tuesday, but now I'm like past the painful part and just ready to start anew.
Yay. How about you,
Yeah.
Alex? How are you today on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm pretty good today. Thanks. I'm about an 8.
Nice.
So that's a good day for me. That's a good day
Yeah,
for me.
for sure.
Yeah, an 8 is a great number. You know what? I'm going to give myself, before the call, I was thinking 5, but I already feel better now that I've had human contact with you two. So
Nice.
Maybe a 6.5. And I'll tell you why, because I spoke at a panel last night. There was about 50 people in the audience, I think, and they were all caregivers. So they all had someone in their life that's ill or they're looking after or that was living in a care home. And I haven't spoken live at a panel since before the pandemic, like done a motivational speech or anything. And it was only a 15-minute speech because it was part of a panel, but oh my God, I'm exhausted. It took all my energy. I woke up this morning and was just like, I'm pooped. Like it was just energy, which I loved. I love being around people, but it's just, you're giving your energy to people and people are asking you questions after and that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's also a very emotionally difficult and challenging environment. Caregivers tend to harbor so much, like they're caring so much, but they're also needing that help a little bit emotionally. So it can be a difficult environment. So
yeah, you totally understand that, right? Like you were doing that all the time. Like you're dealing with the patient, but also dealing with the caregiver. Yeah. So last night my talk was about self-care for the caregiver, right? So what can you do for you to look after you so that you can look after the person you're looking after? So it was a great night. It was sponsored by Mosaic Home Care, who I partner with to do some work. And it was really great speakers, but I really enjoyed it. But it was my first time, doing a speech not on a Zoom call in like 5 years. So it was great. I may say that's my cause for applause too. So my cause for applause is that I spoke at this event and it was really great. Does anybody else have a cause for applause?
Yeah. So I'll go by saying last week, I finally got to catch up with someone who I try to catch up with like every 6 months or so, but like we just haven't in about a year. She's just like this really positive ray of sunshine, but not in like a toxic positivity way. She just always really knows how to look at the bright side without sounding like cliche about things. And I had like a 2 hour talk with her last week, and it's just so nice because she isn't on social media. So like I don't know what's going on in her life until we have these phone calls. And she just like really like makes me feel so much better, and like she's just a really wonderful person. So yeah, my cause for applause is that I got to catch up with an old friend and like really get a lot out of that conversation.
That's really
That's awesome.
nice. And also that she's not on social media.
It's pretty impressive. I'm not going to
Impressive.
share why she's not on social media, but it's a very understandable reason. And yeah, I'm proud of her for sticking to it because it's
Yeah.
been like more than 5 years now that she's been off social media.
Good
So
for her.
I know.
I've recently become addicted to it again
Hmm.
because I've talked about this before. I lost my Instagram account a few years ago. They deleted it because when they changed their new rules, and it happened to a bunch of female entrepreneurs, right? There was something
Hmm.
about showing too much skin or something. And so I've restarted my Instagram account and I've been posting every day, and I see how easy it is to get addicted to it.
Right.
But I'm enjoying posting every day, and like in the back of my head I'm not just addicted to it, it's like I'm addicted to building my business, right? So I'm like, I
Yeah.
know that making these posts every day are going to help build my recreo.health, but I'm like, I get the dopamine hit. I totally get it.
Hmm.
I
But
totally
you're
get it.
posting with purpose. I think that's awesome, right?
Oh,
You're
thank
not
you.
just posting to get like a random like from a random person. You're posting with a purpose of having your message out there, right? And you're excited
Hmm.
about getting it out there. So I think that's kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks for that. You're right. Thanks for that perspective. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm thinking thoughtfully about what I'm posting, and also trying to put myself out there in my stories. So sometimes it'll just be like, I'm getting ready to record the podcast or whatever, but then also thinking thoughtfully about the other things that I'm posting. And if you're
Yeah.
listening out there and you want to follow me, it's at myrecreo.health.
Yeah, and there's a huge difference between creating content and consuming it, right? Like I definitely have been guilty of I start like a show I want to watch and I get my blanket and I get my tea and then I have my phone in my hand and I realize I haven't caught a single plot line in the show because I'm so into what I'm reading on my phone. And then I have to like rewind the episode or like put on something that I don't care about just so that like I don't care about missing it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do a little bit of that too, but then I'm like,
Yeah.
has anybody
Yes, we
liked
all
my
do.
thing yet? Have I got a
Right,
save
right.
yet? Have I got a comment? So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do. I
that's
have
fair.
to be wary and pull myself back. But
Hmm.
Alex, do you have a cause for applause?
I do. And it's probably not what you think, maybe a little.
Oh, I thought it was I think it
So
was gonna be what I thought. That's why I passed by you when I said 8 out of 10.
So today is my birthday, which is great, but that's not
Yay.
my cause for applause.
Okay.
Okay.
But it is awesome. I'm grateful for every single extra year. Aging is wonderful because so many are denied that benefit. So I love it. However, my cause for applause is doing something new for my birthday, which is this
Aw.
podcast.
It's a good cause for
I
applause.
am challenging myself and to be a little bit more open. Vic knows me, but I tend to be a more private person, including my social media. Everything's private, friends only. So I'm trying to step out of that zone. And today's the first time that I'm like saying, you know what? Let's try something new. Let's put yourself out there for my birthday. There you go.
I love that.
It's a perfect birthday thing. I always look at my birthday. Now I know, Alex, for you, New Year's is a big deal. I always spend New Year's with Alex, our family.
Nice.
You have a lot of really cool, like in your Ukrainian history, like you have cool traditions, and so she always teaches us something new. Like we always do sweets to bring in the new year, right? So I learned that
It's
from
great
Alex.
for a
But
sweeter new year.
yeah, sweet on the new year, and but I always treat my birthday kind of like New Year's too, right? So that's perfect. Like I always try to do something for me or challenging or set goals for the year. And I think about my year, not January to December. I think about my year from June 1st to June 1st. So challenging yourself on your birthday. I love it. That's a good cause for applause.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, so I'm hosting today because you and I know each other so well. So I'm not going to share a regret today because I would just share it with you anyways, not recording. So
Nonetheless.
So Shadow's going to share a regret today, and then we're going to give follow-up, and I'm really looking forward to it. So Shadow, are you ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right, let's hear it.
I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. I regret forgetting how much I enjoy being alone. I've become increasingly aware of my need for solitude. I lived by myself for 2 years, and even though there were a couple lonely nights, 90% of the time I loved it. And now I live with my husband and my dog, and we live in the center of the most populated city in Canada. It's really hard to be alone around here, is what I'm saying. In the summer, it is easier to ask for alone time. I can tell my husband to take our dog on a really long walk. But in the winter, it feels next to impossible. My husband and I both work from home, and it's only a 1-bedroom place. And I know it's so easy to suggest, well, just move. But with skyrocketing rent, we're staying put. We're not going anywhere else for a while. An extra wrinkle with this regret is that when I finally do get to be alone, sometimes I squander the opportunity to enjoy it. I want to make sure I use that time in the best way possible. So I make a list and I check it and I hem and I haw, and then, oh my gosh, 3 hours has already gone by. And now, like, oh my gosh, now I only have half an hour left of my alone time. I better do something really great in that half hour. In that way, I wish I could just choose one thing, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this one thing when I'm alone. But it's just, again, it's because it's something I have such limited access to. I just don't really take care of it in the best way. The consequences I'm missing out on due to holding on to this regret is that I feel guilty even talking about it. I don't feel comfortable asking for alone time, so I end up staying up super late as a way to gain access to it. I also feel like I shouldn't share this regret with my friends that have kids because I know it's much more difficult for them. And I also feel like I shouldn't vent about this to my friends that live alone that don't enjoy being alone. This regret's a little different as it's not just in my past. So what I'm going to do to relieve it is today I'm going to say, I'm doing everything I can with the tools I currently have, and that is okay. I'm growing in so many ways each day. I need to remind myself that being alone from time to time helps me be better in all areas of my life. I also need more tools to deal with this request appropriately because I keep hearing, be careful what you wish for in my head when I think about bringing it up. I'm relieved to have shared this today with the two of you, but I still feel a little unsettled about how to move forward. I know that I'm capable of asking for what I need, but I also know that sometimes I'm totally wrong about what that is. So for today, I am absolutely looking forward to feedback as funnily enough, I can't deal with this regret alone.
I'm still going to ask you, do you want feedback or just to be heard?
I would like feedback. Because it was, as I was writing this, I was like, oh, how almost cliche that I'm like, I want to be alone, but I don't know how to figure out how to do that on my own.
I saw Alex writing notes too, so I think we're both gonna have some good
Excellent.
feedback here. And I'm not a mom either, so I'm actually curious of like Alex, your thoughts about Shadow's guilt around like saying it to moms or to parents.
There is not a single thing wrong with that statement.
I just, it's not the same thing. Like I do, like a lot of my friends are moms, and like they talk about that sensation of being touched out, of being like they can't even think about being around another person. And like I'm around one very cool adult, like, and I'm still like I need my alone time. So
yeah, no, I totally hear you. I do have 2 kiddos, so I get that, the alone time. But also, there's this saying, kind of like, just because somebody has it a certain way doesn't mean that your concerns are not valid. And the way I see it is like, just because somebody has a full body break doesn't mean your broken leg doesn't hurt or matter.
Hmm.
And so they're both important. And just because you need some time for yourself to regenerate, to just take time to be quiet, to just be with
Mm-hmm.
yourself, it's not in deficit or adding to somebody else's thing. It's just
Mm-hmm.
you. It's just yours.
Yeah, that's very comforting. Thank you.
Yeah, like your experience, it's well, I have a lot to say obviously about this one,
Yeah.
but there's a few things like I totally agree with Alex. Like we judge ourselves based on what we think other people's perception of us are going to be, or based on what we
Mm-hmm.
think society's perception of us is, or what we think our standards should be. And it's okay to just be like, this is what I need and this is what I want, and that's okay. And we worry about, I mean, judgment's a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried about judgment? Is that part of what the guilt is?
No, it's not about the judgment of it. It's more the okay, like this isn't a really good metaphor. It's just more the idea of like I'm complaining about something that other people wish they had.
So are you judging yourself?
It's not even it's I don't really feel like it's a judgment. It's more like it's
Oh,
almost like when rich people are like, "Oh no, I can't afford my second yacht." And I don't want to like come off as out of touch, I guess is more what it is than the judgment. Like I don't want it to seem like even without children, I'm desperate for alone time. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't know. Does yeah.
so yeah, we've talked about toxic positivity before.
Hmm.
Have we talked about toxic gratitude?
I don't know how they're different, so I guess not.
Okay, so toxic gratitude is exactly what you just did.
Mm,
I should be grateful for this, but that's privilege. So I'm not allowed to be grateful for it. Or
hmm.
another way of toxic gratitude is using it to make other people feel guilty, but you're actually using it on yourself to make other people feel guilty. So
Right.
do you ever do this like to a friend or to Ben or whatever, right? Like, well, I did this thing for you, so you should be grateful and you should make me dinner.
Mm, right.
That's toxic gratitude. Like you're saying,
Right.
you should be grateful because I did something for you that has nothing to do with this.
Hmm.
Right? So you're almost like toxifying your gratitude. I should be grateful for this, but I shouldn't be grateful for this because I have privilege.
Right.
But is it privilege? It's just your human experience. Like
Hmm.
you have things going on in your life that the people that you know that are parents don't. Like
Right.
your brain works differently. You have a neurodivergency.
Hmm.
Maybe, I mean, I think you just said it. You need alone time to regenerate, right?
Yeah.
So why is that bad?
Oh, it's not that it's bad. I don't know where to put this complaint, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know who to complain to about it. Like, yes, I can complain to you or both of you on the podcast, but like and I know that complaining doesn't actually like relieve anything anyway. It's just like, and that's why it's like this regret where it's like very thorny, where like I start to think about like, oh, I really want to have some alone time, but then like I don't want to say it to certain people.
Have you, just if I may ask, have
Yeah,
you
please.
talked to your partner about that,
Oh,
or
he
do you have
knows.
some setup?
He absolutely knows. And actually, he went into the office yesterday, and when he got back from, because like again, he mostly works from home. So when he went into the office yesterday, I was so happy. It was so nice. I don't want to be like, oh yes, I had the best day of my life because you weren't here, but because it's not about that. It's about like Victoria's talked about this before, like the emotional needs of like you need variety, you need all these different things. And like for me, it's just like variety. And again, I think because I did really get accustomed to being by myself when I lived by myself, that like I don't know, like it's still almost a holdover from that. I'm not sure. But he knows, and it's not something that like he's doing consciously or anything either, right? But there are some nights where it's like 9:30 and I'll be like, hey, are you going to bed?
I do that with Christian too. I do that too. I'm like, I just want to watch a really shitty TV show and I don't want you to judge me for it. So are you
Yeah.
going to bed? So
See, I have a rule set up in my entire house for that, so I completely understand that. My husband is what would be considered a pretty high introvert.
Mm,
I'm sort of on a border. I'm good either way, but
Sure.
his tolerance for company is a lot lower than most. And so we
right.
actually have for many, many years now, We have this thing where if we have a moment, obviously we have children and responsibilities, but when we
Yeah.
have those times where we actually have like, we call it our alone time. Literally, my
Nice.
husband will call it like, he'll be like, okay, I need my alone time. I'll be like, bye, see ya, no
Hmm.
problem. Have a coffee, have a tea, put on your headphones, and vice versa. I do the same thing. I'll be
Right.
like, Kata, I love you. I'm gonna need my alone time. And he'll be like, no
Right.
problem, all good, no judgment. And I think that's really like that helps a lot. You said be careful what you wish for when
Yeah.
you're what can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
I just that kind of refrain is an intrusive thought that sticks in the back of my brain all the time about everything. But really when it comes to this, so this idea of like, be careful what you wish for because you could be alone forever tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that it's a holdover from like how I was raised and like different anxiety things and whatever. But yeah, this idea of like, if I talk too much about my desire to be alone, I will get that and I will have no, then the variety goes away again because it's like, well, okay, you wanted to be alone, so here you go, be alone forever. And I don't want that either.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. I hear you just because I do have a little bit of a similar response to things, and in my case that comes from like I have a very specific anxiety diagnosis. It's
Mm,
not generalized anxiety, it's a little bit more specific, but there is
right.
a part of that where um if I need something that isn't always seen as socially acceptable thing to want, like there's going to be
Hmm.
this almost the opposite punishment as a result of it. I do understand that in certain sense when and this is getting a little on a heavier end, but
That's okay.
it
That's
does
what we're here
sometimes
for.
start with an incident. Oh, good. It does sometimes start with some incident or something that may have happened, right? Where you may have wished for
Hmm.
something and then it just went awry a bit. It's good to it's wonderful to hear that you acknowledge the fact that it is an intrusive thought and it isn't true, and we don't always need to believe everything we think, right?
Absolutely. But for this one, it's specifically really hard because I even think back to like when I was a kid and how my mom would talk about this too, about how like she just wanted a day to herself. So like my dad would take us, wherever for the day just so that she could be by herself. And she would like clean and maybe have a bath. And I don't know what else she did because that was her time. And then when her and my dad separated, I remember her telling me she was lonely and she at first it was like this breath of fresh air that she got to be by herself all the time, and then after like in those first couple of years like she had to get a dog, she had to have she had to have something else in her apartment with her because it was just too much to be alone all the time.
And I'm guessing as a kiddo, that's done.
I think that's probably the source of this feeling for you, right? So there's like a guilt around, I mean, there's quite a bit of guilt there. There's a guilt around leaving your mom alone. And then there's a
Hmm.
guilt around having alone time. And then you've probably been guilted or heard that kind of language. Be careful what you wish for because
Hmm.
the worst thing could happen. But the reality is like when the worst thing can happen or the best thing can happen, it usually lands somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Our brain fixates on the worst thing.
True.
That's how our brains work. They fixate on the worst
Hmm.
thing. And so I want to ask too, kind of change it a little bit, but is
Yeah.
the idea of like when you do get alone time, you feel like you're wasting the alone time.
Yeah, I do feel like because sometimes if I know about it in advance, then whatever. But like yesterday, that was kind of like a surprise. I found out late Wednesday night that Ben would be going into the office on Thursday. And I kind of went, "Oh, yay. Oh, wait. Oh, no, I have all these other things to do for like so." And I think it's also the way I define alone time too.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea that I could just tell my husband like, "Oh, I want to be alone for a bit." But it's also my own issue because, like, even though I would say I'm 95% myself around my husband, there's still this 5% of like a guard I hold up that, like, as soon as he leaves, I can take it down. I think even the idea of like, oh, just have your headphones on and maybe be in a separate room, like, it wouldn't be alone enough for me to take that guard down.
I think that's totally normal. Like we're all living in our own human experience. Like even when we have a long-term partner, right? Like part of the human experience is having alone time to reconnect with yourself, reconnect with your body, all those kinds of things. We can't
Hmm.
survive if we don't have alone time.
Right.
I think that's just, you're so right. Yeah, you're so right with that. I was just gonna say that we do have that. I don't know if you guys, I'm gonna age myself here, but I am 45. I'm open with it. Do you remember Sex in the City? The
Yeah.
whole episode was secret single behavior, SSB. Those things that you do that you have to be by yourself and nobody can be around to see them.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
may be weird and strange, but they feel great.
Yeah.
Totally. I don't remember that episode, but I do really appreciate the sentiment. And then, like, again, I've told my husband that those are the things I want to do, and he'll be like, "But you can just do those things around me." And I'm like, "I know I can. I don't want to."
I don't want to.
I don't
Yeah.
want to. Yeah.
I'll have to look
I
up
think
that
that's
episode.
totally
That's a really
normal.
good.
But I also think I wanted to say, and I know that some of this is how your brain works, so like elaborate if you need to.
Sure.
Why do you have to plan the alone time? Why can't the alone time just be the special thing and whatever you end up doing is fine?
Yeah, it's definitely part of the ADHD. Like, I want to make sure I'm making the right choice all the time.
The alone time is the choice, right? Yeah, I know. I'm calling you out. Sorry.
Like when I'm sitting around fantasizing about having alone time, so many different things kind of fill in that space. So when I do actually get it, then I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I'm getting I'm trying to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze of it, like,
Okay, let me ask this in a different way.
yeah.
What do you need to, so not in like a specific day where you have tasks you need to get done or whatever.
Mhm.
Like if you're filling that alone time with things like tasks and things that you might have done if Ben was in the other room or something, right?
Mhm.
So let me ask you this way. What do you need? Like you as a human body or your whatever, what do you need? What do you need to get out of the alone time? How does the alone time help you?
Okay, so I will naturally do tasks when I'm alone because the way I do tasks is a little erratic, and a little bit like from here to here to here to here to here to here to here. And it's hard to kind of be around that if you're not the type of person who does those things. So I try to save it for when I am alone. I also want to sing off key and pretend that I'm like a rock star, and I really enjoy that.
So what's
You
the
know.
feeling? Like, how do you want to feel? Let's say you have 3 hours of alone time. Regardless of what you do, what's the point? How do you want to feel after it? How does it help you to have the alone time?
This sounds really weird. It almost like it feels like I'm shaking off the rust, whether I physically do it or not, whether I actually get up and pretend to be Freddie Mercury and like sing my songs and dance and kick and do all those things. Or I just like am by myself and I'm talking to myself and I'm like figuring things out and I'm narrating my life. Like I don't really do that kind of stuff when other people are around. So at the end of it, it just kind of feels like I'm like polishing myself in a way.
Can I paraphrase this in like a way?
Yes, please do.
Do you just need that time to reconnect yourself?
I guess I don't know if it's reconnecting.
Or experience yourself? I don't know another word of putting it, but
Yeah, it just feels like I'm like shaking off the rust for some reason really sticks out to me.
Yeah.
Like it's like when you see, or like when you see a dog kind of like get out of a mud pile and like
and he like
shake and does all that. Like that's what it feels like when I'm alone. Like that relief of like, okay, just shake everything off for a little bit, and then like, if I go too long without shaking it off, then I get weird. I get weird around people.
Okay, so I want to bring it back to like how you said when you're going to have alone time, you are like, I want to do this, 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 and this, and it has to be special. I don't want to waste my alone time.
Yeah.
And I would say it doesn't matter what you do in your alone time because you're shaking the rust off and being yourself. So on that day, if what you want to do on your alone time is binge watch some TV, that's what you want to do with yourself that day.
Right.
On another day, if you want to get tasks done in a weird erratic way, that's fine too. But maybe try and take that judgment off of like that I have to do something special because the alone time is the special thing, regardless of what you do.
Yeah, that could definitely be a reframe that I could practice. I like that.
You sound to me like you are an extremely caring person and that you really care about others and their needs. And sometimes to care for yourself everyone else needs to be gone, because even if they are nearby, there's still that 5 to 10, 1% chance they'll
Yeah,
need you to get
totally.
up, to move, to do something.
Mm.
And so when you are alone, you still have that buffer in the back to always say, like, okay, but be careful, because you can't fully relax. You can't fully let go, because they may come in, they may need something. And
Yeah.
so instead of 100% focusing on just you, this is your time. Shake it off. Be yourself. Remember who you are with yourself, not who you are with others as well.
Right.
Just you and you, right? And so there's that part. I mean, I think that's kind of what it feels like to me anyway. So I'm hoping that's relatable.
Oh, that's so helpful. It's so funny. I didn't even think about how much I care about other people's perception. But that's part of it too. Like, it's definitely this idea that, like, and again, it's not through any fault of his. It's just he's the person I'm around the most.
Because you're
But
caring.
yeah, but he, like, if I get really into what I want to do, like, the whole world fades away. So then, like, if he asks me a question, it pulls me out of that space. So, and it's not easy for me to get back into it. Like, it takes a lot of setup to get into the zone like that for me. Yeah, like, I won't let myself get into the zone if I expect that someone else might need to ask me a question, because I'll just get so frustrated with coming out of the zone. And I don't want my frustration to be taken out on others. So
I totally feel that.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, Alex, too. Like, what do you do when, like, what do you get out of alone time, or what is it that you need? I'm gonna ask you the same question, I guess. I'm curious.
No, no problem. One thing that I really, and again, we all function differently, but I actually do fill my alone time with tasks. So I'm an obsessive cleaner and organizer. My house is usually super clean. I vacuum 4 times a day. Well, it's a bit of an
yeah,
exaggeration, but often I'll shop, I'll cook, I'll do things. I actually like that. And one of the reasons I do like it is because I feel like important things at that time are processing in the back of my mind, and they're not center stage. And so even though some part of my attention is devoted to a task I'm doing, in my case, task I'm enjoy doing, because I do enjoy cleaning, I do enjoy cooking and stuff. And so, but it is somewhat repetitive. I have done it a million times and I know how to do it. And it lets sort of the back of my mind to just process and blossom. And I'll have thoughts and memories and imagination and all these worlds living in my head at the time as I'm cleaning, something I could never do if I were to just sit and stare at the wall or but I could do it if I'm watching a movie. I could watch a movie and at the same time in the back of my mind have a whole situation happening with fireworks and things, right?
I really love that description.
I'm very envious of people who are obsessive cleaners, because that's also why I end up needing alone time sometimes, is that, like, I really slack on some stuff, and then, like, when I want to get into a cleaning mode, it's not pretty. It's not like it is, like, it's just like, sometimes I make a bigger mess as I'm cleaning up the mess, but it's because I have to really, like, get into the nooks and crannies, and, like, anyway. And I know that being around that can be stressful for my partner, so I try to not do that unless I'm home alone. So yeah, no, but I think I've heard that before with, like, the concept of, like, the shower principle. Like, how many times have you been showering and you get, like, the best idea you've ever had, and then you get out of the shower and it's gone.
Yeah, you're
Like, you
what
can't
was
even
that?
remember, like, the first word of the idea, and it's because, like, you're so like focused on a repetitive motion of, like, now I lather my hair, now I rinse my hair, now I do this, now I do that, like, and so yeah, these amazing revelations will come to you when you are showering.
It's reminiscent, right? Yes. Yes, it's sort of, to me, like, when I phrase it, it's reminiscent of that saying that we are a drop in the ocean, but we're an ocean in the drop.
Whoa,
Ooh.
that's really
You're
beautiful.
both, right?
That's gonna be an Instagram post for this episode.
Yeah.
Well, that's just how I kind of see it. And so you, myself, Victoria, everyone, we have this whole world inside our minds, and it changes and forms and shapes, and it has stories and feelings and all these things, right? And then we have the outside world, and they interact, sometimes 25%, sometimes 50.
Yeah.
And yeah, and sometimes you need that moment to just be a drop and look at your world, right? And just not have the outer world coming in.
Yeah.
And I would
Just
even
kind of
say
be
you're
you.
allowed to do that. Like you can't be a functioning human being if you don't do that. Like if you're always being of service to everybody else. I think a lot of women do this, right? Is we guilt
Well, I
ourselves
mean,
about it,
that's
right?
gonna
You're
really
allowed to
come
do
into
that.
my regret there.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And yeah, on that, I think we're like, I think that's also, we'll just wrap it up mine by saying, like, that's why I think I feel so guilty about it when I talk about it with people who have kids, because like, I have way fewer responsibilities and I still feel this strong urge. So I think that's where but like we talked about that already, but that's kind of where it comes for me, because like I know that women take on a lot, and I judge myself for not taking on very much comparatively. But comparison is not
But you've
healthy.
taken on enough for you, right?
Yeah.
For your life. And I'm going to point something out at the beginning. I can't remember if we were recording or not. We're talking about dogs. Alex said she doesn't have a dog. She has a no pet rule. You do have a dog, but you don't have kids.
Yeah.
Alex has kids, but she doesn't have a dog, right? So like everybody like takes on these things. And yeah, I think like you've heard me say this before too. I mean, it kind of matches a little bit. Is I kind of shifted the way I look at my friendships in the past couple years. I think this podcast has helped do it too. But in some friendships, we kind of give unsolicited advice, or sometimes we judge our friends based on what we think they should be doing. And all of my closest friends, I've said to them in the past few years this, and I've shifted it. It's like my job isn't to be here to tell you what I think you should do and to judge you. Like, how many times have you heard people gossiping about another friend, or you've done it yourself and be like, well, I don't like what they're doing. I disagree with the choice they're making with their life. Well, okay, but that's my job isn't to disagree with the choice they're making with their life. My job is to, even if I do disagree with it, and even if I am right and shit hits the fan later, to be there for them when shit hits the fan. Because if I just give them my judgment now, they're not going to reach out to me later. But it's also not my job. My job is just to be there as a friend and support those things, right? And so I will say to you, I support you having alone time, right? Like know that people aren't judging you for what you need. Everybody wants you to be successful, right? This is another thing I learned when, like, you know, you're giving public speeches or whatever. I guess my mind is on this because I was, you know, gave a motivational speech last night for the first time in forever. Everybody in the audience wants you to give a good speech. Nobody wants you to fail, because nobody wants to have that awkward moment in the audience where you're like, this is awkward and I'm watching this person fail. Like everybody in the audience wants you to give a good speech. They want it to be awesome. They want you to be awesome so that they don't need to feel awkward that you're not awesome.
True.
Right. And I think that just goes with like life and friends and family, right? Like everybody actually wants you to be successful. And if you're saying what I need, or whatever successful means, but if you're saying I need alone time so I can be my best self, great. I'm not going to judge you for that. I don't care if you have kids or not. I don't care if you have a dog or not. You're saying what you need. I love you. I support you. Have a good alone time.
Yeah.
And maybe say that to yourself, but then consider that all of your friends want that for you too. Just like they're the audience and they want that for you too. How do you feel?
I feel slightly more settled, slightly equipped with more tools to try. But I know that this is something I will need to work through on my own a little bit more.
Good. Maybe we'll do an update later. But I also want to really thank you for that share, because I do think also as a person that doesn't have kids, is women, we do judge ourselves and we think my needs aren't as great as women that are moms, or my needs aren't as great as women that do this. And the thing is, whatever your needs are so that you can be a human being are totally fine, but totally relatable. So thank you.
Thank you.
Totally relatable. Your stuff's always relatable, but I think it's really good. And I think it's
very relatable. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you, Shadoe, for a good share.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, so very excited. Alex is here, excited to get into whatever it is you want to share without any pressure. So are you ready to share
No pressure.
Are you ready to share a story?
No pressure at all.
Do you have any
Yeah,
preamp
so
you want to say before you share your story? Is there any background information or anything?
no, I think you guys pretty much know everything.
Okay.
A regret I would like to share and hopefully let go of is not making my wellness a priority. Everyone and everything else important in my life made the priority list. Not me, though. That's the extra sad part because I was the one making the list and I didn't make the cut. I was not blind to the fact that I was not doing great. And I was thinking, you see, my job in critical care meant amazing camaraderie, saving lives, making a difference, but it also meant extremely high stress, both physically and psychologically. And I'm not going to mention the pandemic. At the same time, I was and am a mom of two precious boys, one of whom is neurodivergent. Being a mom of is an amazing thing, but it's also very challenging, especially if you add the special needs aspect. And at the same time, I was also dealing with the loss of my mom. She was my best friend, my support, my person. And then in a matter of 2 weeks, she wasn't. She was just gone. And I don't want to go into circumstance of her passing. It's too painful, but they were sudden, excruciating, and infuriating all at the same time. So there were lots of balls to juggle. And I thought I was doing okay, thought I was managing. It just sort of creeps up on you. Not being able to fall asleep, not being able to stay asleep, not really relaxing, not eating, maybe skipping a walk, sometimes jumping out of my skin and being startled when someone just touches or approaches me, the growing feeling of dread driving to work or driving home. I wasn't really managing. In truth, I was ignoring and pushing down. I still remember that feeling like, well, there isn't enough time or strength for me. I was so tired. I lost majority of my interest at the time. My favorite activities, such as, well, reading, everybody knows I read everything. I have libraries, and I couldn't bring myself to open a book. I couldn't concentrate. And frankly, at that point, I just didn't care. Dinners with husbands, seeing friends, that went on a back burner. But in my head, I was still managing because I was meeting all of my responsibilities. It's just, if I were to hang on a little bit more, things would just somehow change and be better. If I'm being honest, I could have probably asked for help. I have a very supportive husband. I have awesome friends. I have great family, but I didn't ask. I didn't want to add to anybody else's plate. Not my husband's, not my friends dealing with a lot, pandemic and other things. I didn't want to even add to my doctor to make an appointment because I felt like I wasn't physically ill and that was not a priority. So I just waited. And things did change. We sold our house, we moved, life changed, except I didn't change. And the things inside still the same. And then, just like with everything else, I guess, there's that last moment, that last little drop. And for me, it was a big drop. My dad had a stroke and everything took a backseat. And so for a month, 2 months actually, I was there from 7 in the morning till 5, 6 at night, every single day, making all the meals when I would come home, make sure that he had the meals, that I bring something fresh, that my kids had the meals. And then I would go to bed, wake up, and repeat that for 2 months. I took a leave from my job. I couldn't do anything except concentrate on my dad. And he did great. He was finally discharged home, and he's doing so well. And did I take time to recover? Did I take time to address my issues? No, I went back to work. In fact, the next available shift. Sadly, that was my last shift. I had to leave halfway through in severe pain. Then the following year, our visits and endoscopies and doctor's appointments, my body made me take time off for myself. Amongst the plethora of diagnoses, the stress-induced kept coming up. And when there's a word stress in the name, especially a medical diagnosis name, you can't push down anymore. You can't ignore anymore. It's right there staring at you. And so after much crying and deliberating with my husband, I finally realized I needed to heal. I was at the breaking point and I think I just broke. And I needed to address my health and my well-being, my mental health. And to do that, something had to give, something I loved. And I couldn't pause on being a mom. And I couldn't pause on being a daughter. And I couldn't pause on being a wife. So I had to pause on being a nurse. And in the last year and a half, I did take some very big steps. I have therapy at least once a week. That's at minimum. I drastically improve my diet. I take my time to do things I love, to rest, to even treat myself, to recognize how incredibly blessed I am to have the support I do. And I feel myself doing better. And then I remember this quote. I'm sure people probably heard it, by Joyce Sudana. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And it was very true for me. Looking back, I could have talked to my husband about my feelings. I could have even gone to my doctor and made myself priority, but I didn't make the priority list. And yet there are still times, even now, when I still feel guilty, as if somehow my therapy, my health, my time have too much me in it. When others express concerns to me, I would hear it with intent of compassion and empathy. But when I express concerns, even to myself in my own mind, I felt like I was whining, like I was complaining. I'm still struggling with questions like that. Where's the line in my own mind between self-care and self-centeredness? How to find a healthy balance between making sure I'm meeting all my responsibility and my own needs? That's kind of the journey I am on now. Now, I did everything I could at that time with the tools I had, and that's okay. Accountability for my mistakes is important, but not to blame myself, rather to grow from those mistakes. I accept that as a part of my human journey. That's who I was then, and I have, in fact, grown in so many ways. And I do hope that sharing that experience will benefit others in some way. And also, thank you to Victoria and Shadoe for letting me share.
Thank you, Alex. I have tears in my eyes for two reasons. One is I went through this experience with you, and I also went through almost a very, very similar experience 10 years ago, as you know. So I want to thank you for being open and honest and sharing, because I guarantee you there's tons of listeners out there that are going, that exact same feeling and thing happened to me, or I'm about to have that happen to me, and we need to talk about it. So my next question is, are you open to talking about it and having feedback?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Feedback, talk, analyze. There's no wrong answers. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, there's stigma, but some of the stigma we put on ourselves is that I'm too weak. Like, we really judge ourselves. That's obviously coming from the outside, the world around us, but it's programmed into our head to think we're weak and I don't deserve help and I shouldn't ask for help. Or you kind of, what did you say? You said stress induced illness. I almost feel like when you say it's a stress induced illness, it's not taken as seriously as like a broken leg, right? It's like, oh, you did this to yourself or something. But maybe that's my own judgment in my own head, but there's
Absolutely.
something around that language too. And then there's also the idea, which had the exact same feelings. I don't want to waste my doctor's time because I go there when I have the flu. So why would I go to my doctor if I'm not feeling well, right? But like, we now know, I mean, we've always known, but we're now taking it more seriously, like the wellness wheel, right? Like, your health is your intellectual health, your social health, your mental and emotional health, your physical, all those things, right? But we still have this programming that it's not important. And especially as women, the idea of like, we have to do it all. And yeah, I just think everything you said was so relatable. And I'm going to let Shadoe give some feedback, because you and I have talked about this off mic before.
I will say that I also had tears in my eyes, and this is my first time meeting you. I thought your story was super relatable and extremely well written. Like, do you write?
As a hobby,
Oh my
yes.
gosh, it was incredible. Like, I felt like I was there every step of the way, and like just the way, like, you use language in a really beautiful way. So I want to compliment you for
Thank
that,
you.
because it was yeah, I'm like tearing up again. Okay, sorry. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
that's okay. And I'm happy we're doing this. I'm happy we're doing this. It's really touching. What stood out for me was like, you didn't want to make a doctor's appointment, even though you're in that like, you're in that field. And I
Yeah.
almost feel that when I do go to, like, I mostly see my nurse practitioner. I don't see my doctor very often. But I see my nurse practitioner probably every 3 months or so. And every time I see her, I want to ask her if she's okay. And not because she's giving me any signals that she isn't, but it's almost because she isn't giving me signals that she isn't. She's still this like peppy, wonderful, super caring person who like listens to me go on and on and on. And I'm like, you have to do this all day. I can't believe like I'm taking up your time over like my silly stuff when I know that she's dealing with just so much all the time. Yeah, so I just like I don't know how to fix it. I just know that it really illuminated for me how scared we are to ask for the help we are so willing to give others. And I don't know what the solution is. It's just remarkable to me that even being in the health field, you felt this guilt about wasting your doctor's time. And I
It might be also part of that, the fact that I was in a health field, right?
maybe,
And especially during the pandemic and afterwards, and then I'm sure everybody who is in Toronto or in Canada knows that we're struggling with our healthcare system and it being overwhelmed and flooded, and there's so many people that are unwell
yeah.
and they need that attention, and so there's part of me anyways that was and still is, in all honesty, where it's like, but do I need to take that away from, like, if I make that
Yeah.
appointment, am I making it about like someone else's more serious appointment is now pushed back because I took that time? And
Hmm.
also a big part of it, for me at least, is recognizing that what we perceive as mental health is, it's not that it's only nowhere near the importance of the physical health, even though there's so many studies, a plethora of evidence to show how much our mental health affects our physical health.
Hmm.
I'm relatively, I'm going to say, open about my, diagnosis and stuff, but one of them, which I had, so uh, now I guess conquered, was stress induced gastritis. If you actually look it up sometime, or look at it, it is in fact a full-blown, extremely painful inflammation
Mm.
that damages your body and your system and everything, and it is induced by stress. And so we have that link, and yet we treat it very differently still,
Mhm.
because when you are coughing and you're having a fever and you're vomiting or something going on, you're going to call your doctor,
Hmm.
you're going to call them. But when you're sleeping 3 hours a night and then you wake up and you stare at the wall, or when you realize that you don't really want to see anyone, including people you love, and you don't
Hmm.
want to get off the bed, and it's so much easier to just lie down under the blanket than take a shower, you're not going to call the doctor.
No.
You just won't. And that to me is sad, because honestly, when I had reached out to my doctor, and then so I have a doctor and a physician assistant working together in the office. And so I reached out to both. I got great referrals. My therapy, at least in Canada, and I'm so privileged in that sense compared to a lot of people who are not in Canada, but my therapy is fully paid for by my medical insurance, our entire insurance. It is actually fully paid for. It's not, there's this perception that somehow our mental health is superfluous, or in some cases being spoiled. How many times have we
Mm.
seen that,
Yeah,
right? In
yeah.
movies? Like, oh my God, she can afford the shrink and lie down on a couch and, I don't know, have a champagne as she talks about her shopping problems.
Or also get over yourself. Yeah.
Yes, right. That's they just, whatever. It's a luxury. It's a thing. Who needs mental health, right? It's a thing for either the very rich people or for those who are terribly afflicted. People living with schizophrenia or like auditory or visual hallucinations, disturbances, right? So it's this either or, and there's nothing in the middle where we can
Mm.
just say like, I have a cold and I'm sneezing. I think I'm coming down with a depression. You can, like, it doesn't have to be either or, right? And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to share, because I am in a healthcare field. um I was in extremely stressful job. My people whom I so love and respect are still there, and I recognized the signs. I've seen them, I've recognized them, and I still didn't do anything about it until the breaking point came.
Can I ask you a curious question too? And I wonder whether you're in the healthcare field or not, if part of the reason why we don't go to our doctors is maybe our doctors aren't prepared to give us what we need either, right? It's just like you go and you get the referral and you start the referral process. And like our general physician doctors haven't caught up to the education needed or the science around that either. I mean, I'm not saying my doctor was amazing. He was like, Victoria, you have to stop working. And I was like, no. He's like, I was like, I just need a letter to not work for a week. He's like, I'm writing you a letter for a month. And then he called me, right? But maybe some older doctors aren't up to like are still feel stigma around it too. Like maybe there's just a fear of that, of your doctor making you feel like it's not as important, or you wait for a referral and then your doctor doesn't know how to help you while you're waiting 3 months for a referral to a psychiatrist, right? So what do you do in those interim periods?
I totally feel you when you say that. And you are right. Doctors are people, nurses are people,
Yeah.
we're all people, and we come in with our own biases and our own preconceptions and preconceived ideas. And some are aware of them and some work through them, and some fail occasionally or more often. I guess the way I see it is that we don't always fight for our own mental health as much as we do for our physical one as well.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, when there's something wrong with your body and you feel it's wrong and your doctor gives you, oh, it's fine, it's just woman time or whatever else. We often hear, especially as women, right? It's just like that crippling pain you're having.
Oh, it's just fibroids. All women have fibroids. It's no problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Or endometriosis, which is highly underdiagnosed for women, right? Or PCOS, like, always like, thank you, sir, without a uterus. But yeah,
yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, like a lot of us, if you fight, you go to another doctor, you reach out to a nurse, you reach out even on the computer to somebody, a wellness person, somebody who's already gone through it, someone, right? We reach out, we go, hey, listen, my doctor's telling me this is normal, and I don't think this is normal. I've heard you've gone through that. What did you do? Who did you go to? Or, hey, maybe I'll just do a walk-in clinic as a secondary opinion and see what they say. But do we do that often for our mental health? Probably not. But part of that is probably because mental health does make us think a bit differently and is fuzzy and it is confirmatory. Of course it is. And if we're lucky, we can just say it to our partner or someone in our life who loves us. And that way they can help us fight for us when we are just too fuzzy and we can't see. And maybe that person can come with you to the doctor or to the nurse. Or if that doctor dismissed you as you're just not, I don't know, paying attention enough, or you're just not whatever it is, right? And that person, be that your husband, your partner, your kid, your mom, whoever it is in your life that you trust, right? They can be like, no, 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 that's not it. You're not hearing it. I don't like the way you are, XYZ. I'm going to help you get a second or third opinion. Talk to someone about how you're feeling. Let someone in there. It is a privilege to have those special people, and most of us do have them. But for those who don't, there are certain services, perhaps in your areas, hotlines, right? Reach out, is what I'm saying. Take it that way.
I think what listeners need to hear is what you were saying there, where it creeps up on you. Like as soon as you notice that you're not sleeping as well, you're not eating, you're not doing the things that you enjoy, that's when you have to make the appointment. Because similar to what Victoria is saying, you might have to wait 3 months for a specialist. That's the moment. That's the moment where you go a whole week where you're sleeping 3 hours a night. Like you probably still have maybe 3 months left in the gas tank before you absolutely crash. So maybe that's when you have to go to the doctor and understand that, oh, it might take a little while. It might take a little bit of work, but it's easier to work on it when it's a little bit broken than when it's fully crashed.
Yeah.
Not that we're
Absolutely.
cars, but like I think about that with like mechanics.
But no,
It's a good
Yeah.
we
analogy,
are
cars.
mechanisms.
Yeah.
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 I'd say trust your gut in two ways, like pun intended and not intended is, you were saying like struggling with gastrointestinal stuff, like your gut, like literally trust your gut. If you don't feel good in your gut, that's your second brain. There's so many nerve endings there, and your gut is the first thing to go when you're struggling with depression, anxiety, these sorts of things. So literally trust your gut. If you're like, why do I keep having these stomach problems and I'm highly stressed? There's a connection there. But I would also say trust your gut in terms of trust your instincts and that voice in your head, or maybe it's not a voice, whatever it is. But for me, it was probably 6 months before. I remember having a moment. I was sitting in a meeting and I got up and I was like having a heat flash. I was like, what the F is this? It was a panic attack, but I didn't know. But in that moment, I thought, something's not right. I don't feel good. And I should have trusted my gut in that moment. Like, you know what I mean? Like trusted that voice in my head that said, Victoria, something's not right. But then I went, no. If I tell people something's not right, I'm weak. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Just going to go to the washroom, splash some water in my face. I'm fine. But when there is a moment and you hear that voice in your head, or you have that instinctual feeling like something's not right, trust yourself.
I agree with you with a slight caveat. I also want to just talk about the relief you feel when that feeling goes away.
And that's why we don't listen, and the feeling's gone, and then we're like, I'm fine.
Oh, thank God I don't have to call the doctor. Man, that was scary. And like we're just so happy to be comforted that like, wow, I'm so glad I had a sparkling water. Like I don't have nausea anymore. We need to be cognizant of when those bad things are happening, but also be cognizant that like the relief might be temporary. And we have to like make sure we're checking in.
Maybe like observe the pattern.
Yeah. And it's work and it sucks. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm going to say it totally sucks. But I would rather deal with it than let it get bigger. But I mean, we've all done it. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying, when you have that bad feeling and then you get so excited about the relief, I don't know. I don't have the answer. I
know. I get what you're saying, because we can trick ourselves into thinking, oh, I'm fine. And I don't want to be stigmatized with mental health. So I had this,
and I don't want to waste my doctor's time, and I don't want to.
Yeah. And then we go down that spiral.
Yeah.
And I think all of us probably did it.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with that, because that kind of feeling where the hardest lie to refute is the one you tell yourself. It is the most difficult one, because we can lie to others can lie to us, and we kind of know it, and we kind of know. But when you lie to yourself, it is so difficult, because not only are you doing it, you're also believing it, and you're wanting to believe it, and you absorb it. And, getting through that part, that's a challenge. But I also kind of wanted it to bring it back a little bit from when you get to the point when you need to see a doctor, or sort of bring it a little bit back to, we do so many things, especially now, I think, like according to social media and what I see, for prevention, right? We do like, hey, healthy diet, exercise, get your 10,000 steps, take vitamin D supplements in the winter, whatever it may be, right? Let's do the same, right? But also for the mental health part. Let's not get to that part. Join something, be part of something, whatever it is and looks like for you, where it's good for your mental health, when it keeps it more resilient and keeps it more sort of, I guess resilient, would be the better part, right? So when you are attacked by life, and it will inevitably attack you, it always does, to everyone, you are that much better. You are that much more able to withstand it and still see joy in it. And that could look different for different people. Join wellness programs, join a book club, join biking where you talk to people, whatever it may be, right? But let's just, we do all these supplements and runs for our physical health. What can we do for our mental health? Maybe go to church if you're a person of faith. That's a great place to build a community, whatever it may be, right? That way there is more of you, more strength in you, mental health wise. So then when things do happen, nip them in a bud, get the help right away, see them right away, notice them right away, right? So that is another. I didn't do that.
Yeah,
I'm
set up your connection to the community. I would also say if joining something feels too heavy for you, we just need human connection, and it doesn't always have to be deep. It could be just leave your house and say hi to the first stranger you see on the street and keep walking, right? Like just have some human connection. Or I know I say this all the time, but like my baristas at my local cafe, it's a small business cafe, my baristas are part of my mental health support team. Honestly, I love the staff. Shout out to Tori's Cafe. I love the staff at Tori's Cafe. My baristas, I go in there. It's human connection for me. Some days Christian gets up for work. He comes home, he eats, he goes to bed because he's so tired. So some days my only human connection is the 2-minute conversation that I have with the baristas, right? Just make a human connection. That's a good starting point. You need to feel connected and not alone. And it could just be saying hi to someone or just talking to your barista or whatever. But now, like, you know, I go in there like probably 4 or 5 times a week. I go in, they know my drink, they start making it, they ask me how I am, they ask me how Christian is, I ask them how their parents are, whatever, right? Like it formed a connection. And like we just need to have those, we need connections, whether they're deep or whether they're small and short and sweet. The connection is a good first step too. Shadoe, you're nodding your head too. I
absolutely.
think you're going to say something.
Yeah, I would say similarly, like not just me, but Gertie has really become expecting of a certain person at our concierge desk. She's the weekday 9 to 5 person. And like we have 24-hour concierge like here in our building. But the other people, like I just don't have a connection with them. But it's also like on the weekend, like I watch Gertie look for her, even though I know she's not going to be there. But just that reminder of like she's so used to seeing that person there, and it brings her so much joy that I'm like, oh right, like this is a person that is in my circle that like even if we just say hi, and like she pets the dog and we say, oh, cold outside, like like at least there's that one person that I connect to like pretty regularly. I'm nodding because yeah, like you're both making me think a lot today, which is nice.
I don't like that's always called mental health, like mental health prevention.
Well-being.
Like grammatically, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
But like, how can we prevent mental unhealthiness or whatever, right? Like mental
Wellness.
unwellness.
Concentrate on wellness.
Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna put another one out there too, is just nature. Studies show that if you just have 40 seconds of nature, your stress levels go down. And it doesn't actually have to be outside in nature. You can be looking at a photograph of nature. 40 seconds, that's it. Step outside your door, breathe in fresh air.
That's actually something that I agree with so much. Do you guys remember, maybe you've seen it, maybe not, I think it was during the pandemic and then afterwards, these different sort of groups on Facebook or on Insta popped up, right? And they were like the view from my window or the view from your window. And it was all about that hundreds of thousands of people sending that picture from their window and sharing that with the world, right? So you can almost travel the world where we're stuck in our apartments and that sort of connection. It's odd, right? Because it isn't that intimate, but it's an immediate connection. I'm looking with my eyes at someone across the world that looking at, and vice versa.
Connection.
And there's a connection with us being a human. And it takes like a millisecond to make that connection, but it's still there, right? It gave you that tiny little piece of joy for a second.
Yeah. So like I've said this before, deep work doesn't have to be hard work all the time, and it doesn't have to be time consuming work. We can work on ourselves in 30 seconds. I'm going to put another one out there too. It's a really cool website that I like. It's called explore.org, and it's nature cameras all over the world. And you can pick an animal and you can look at the nature camera. And some of them are animals on captivity. So they have a panda one, I think, on pandas in a zoo in China. But like there's underwater ones where they know that the sharks are nesting and you can watch the sharks underwater, or you can watch, and it's really, really cool. And I don't know, they haven't, like, there's hundreds of them, and you can pick an animal and look, or pick an area and look. And then they'll always have highlighted kind of like what's active right now. So, oh, the tigers are active right now. Check out this camera or whatever. And like, that's another way to connect too. It doesn't have to be immersing in nature. It can be looking at it, right? And this is where technology can be a good tool, like a tool for good with our mental health too, right? So
The other thing I just kind of wanted it maybe to see if you guys have some feedback or thoughts
yeah.
on is that balance that so many of us are struggling with. Not even balance, this idea that putting yourself first or priority for a certain times feels selfish or feels, self-centered.
Mhm.
I did write that down when you said it, when you said, where's the balance between self-care and self-centeredness? I think this kind of comes back to this cliche thing where the fact that you're thinking that way means you're not self-centered at all. It means the fact that you're even worried about that means do it more. Do it all the time. Like that to me but like I know that sounds cliche, but that to me falls in that bucket where like if you, the fact that you're even like mean people don't sit around thinking about whether or not they're mean. So the fact that you're even worried about it coming across as self-centeredness means I think do it more. And it's so much easier to say to someone else than to do it yourself. Which again, bring it back to my share today. I was like, I don't know if being by myself and kicking people out of my place is rude or whatever. And like yeah, that Victoria, I'm sure you might have a different opinion on it, but
No, I
that's
love
how
what
I feel about
you're
it.
saying there too. And then this idea of radical self-care, which is a term that was coined a while ago, is getting rid of the analogy about pouring from a full cup. You should be pouring from an overflowing cup. If what you're giving to others is depleting your cup down to half full, and then you need to refill your cup with self-care, you need to refill your cup so that it's overflowing and you're giving the overflow to others. So many of us are depleting and refilling and depleting and refilling. But if we're in that cycle of depleting and refilling or only refilling half, we're actually not giving ourselves enough to be a whole human being ourselves and to give to others to be a whole human being. So I actually really don't like the idea of pouring from a full cup. I like the analogy of pouring from an overflowing cup instead. I can't help people if I can't help myself, right? And that's a cliche one too. We all say that, but I like the idea of radical self-care that kind of shifted that analogy into something more that said we should be giving the overflow. And it's not selfish to want to have a full cup all the time because you can't help others if you don't have a full cup. Because think about it, if you're like totally energy depleted or you're totally like in a bad mood or whatever, and the advice that you give to your friends probably isn't going to be the same advice that you would give to your friends if you were feeling complete and full and good.
And this analogy also works with the idea that like if there's a hole in your cup, that should be your first priority.
Yeah. Fixing
like
the
if
hole.
There's something that needs to be patched up in that cup, that's your first priority, not filling it, not overflow. Like there might be a big gaping hole in the bottom or the side of that cup. And that needs to be your first priority so that you can get back to the overflow.
Yeah, it's impossible to get that cup overflowing if you don't fix the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more you ignore it, unfortunately. Or a new hole pops up.
Yeah. I think it's a hard one we all struggle with, right? And again, I think it's societal conditioning, the way we grow up, whatever it is, but the thinking that time is selfish. And if people are telling us it's selfish, honestly, F them. You know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe like I would say I'm pretty far along on my journey on that one. Like I never feel like self-care is selfish anymore. So I would say I'm pretty far along, but I mean, I started that 10 years ago. I kind of look at it more of like my needs, wants, and boundaries, I guess. Like, am I feeling, instead of thinking it's self-care, it's like, well, I'm not functioning if my needs aren't being met, or I'm not functioning if I go to the edge of that boundary. And when I word it that way, instead of saying I need self-care, if I feel like someone's gonna judge me, I'd say like I need some time alone, or I need whatever it is to like check in on myself, and I need to make sure this is meeting my needs and wants. Instead of using the word self-care, maybe helps a little bit, because there almost is a stigma around the word self-care a little bit now. What you're saying is people think it's selfish. So I think of it more in terms of like, what are my needs, wants, and boundaries so that I can be a functioning human being? And again, I'm pretty open too, as both of you know, saying like, my SAD is brutal right now, which it is right now. This week it's been brutal. It's being like, well, my SAD is brutal. And I'll say that to my friends or my family or whatever, like, my SAD is brutal. This is what I need to do right now so that I can do that. And I'm going to do that. And whenever I'm like out loud and actually say that, people are like, yeah, do what you need to do. It's okay that you can't come to the thing, or it's okay. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is what I need to
Yeah.
do so that I can feel better. And when I feel better, I'll hang out with you.
Yeah, and I think
I
it
don't know.
really is coupled with this idea, and this helped me a lot. I had a really hard time napping or taking rests without feeling really guilty about it. And then I almost had to trick myself into like, well, resting is productive because I can be more productive after I rest, as opposed to just like, and that's how I had to trick myself. It's sometimes it's really hard to show up for yourself. So you have to almost trick yourself into thinking like, oh, but I can be there for other people if I'm more there for myself, or I can, instead of just doing like 50% of a task, I could do 90% of the task if I just take this 1 hour to rest first.
Can I throw something back at you?
Yeah.
What if you looked at alone time the same way you reframed rest?
No, we're not doing that today. We're not.
But do you know what's so funny? I had that exact conversation with the client this morning. I was talking about taking naps.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I said. I said, the nap is the productive thing. The nap isn't wasting time. The nap is the productive thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Did that help, Alex? Like, I thank you for letting us talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because it helps to not only not feel alone, but like feeling understood helps. And then, yeah, just kind of feeling like I'm heard. And hopefully, if I'm heard, that means that others are hearing too, and that really helps.
Do you know, I was gonna say, you know what I think really helps, like just in general, like you just said it, telling your friends when they tell you these things, I hear you.
Like as women, a lot of times, and I do have to say, I don't usually like to be like, oh, as women, as men, pick a category, stay in it or something. But traditionally and historically, as women, we have that sort of caring part, right? We grab that part. That's like our sphere. Whether or not we choose that sphere, it's often just assigned to us. Like, you're a woman, hear me care. It's just that's just kind of how it is, right? And we do. And we're happy to as well. I don't want to make this into, oh, I'm a woman, I have to care. No, I'm joyful to care. I love to care for my husband. I love to care for my kids. I love being a daughter. I loved being a daughter to my mom and dad. I still love being a daughter to my dad. I love being a friend to people who are important to me. I love the caring part, right? That didn't start. I loved my patients in a sense of, caring for them, what I can do. Those things are true. I don't diminish that capacity because it's a huge gift we have, is that ability to care deeply, actually, fully care. Except a lot of times we forget to care for ourselves. And I mean that on an elemental, basic level. How many times I have personally forgotten to eat. When my dad was going through his sort of harder stages of illness, I lost 10 pounds in 7 weeks because I just forgot. And my husband had to remind me once a day to just eat. So there's that part. And had I asked him to, he would absolutely, without a single doubt, made me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have a wonderfully supportive husband, but it never crossed my mind to ask.
Right.
Because I'm the one who cares. I'm the one who's the carer. I'm the one who does these things. And when I just started my nursing journey, I remember this educator who was a lovely, lovely older lady. And she, at the end of each shift, when we followed our nurses and were usually completely terrified of judging and questioning our decision making of choosing this profession at the end of the shift, she'll be like, how did the shift go? And so on and so forth. And we tell her, and she would always have this. She'd say, how many people did you ask for help? And you'd have to tell her, and more or less. And she always had this rule: if you didn't ask for help during your shift, you didn't do your job.
Wow.
And it got stuck in my head so much that if I did not, every single time I had worked, every shift I have done, I have asked for help for my patients, for myself when I need it. Can you help me lift this person? Hey, can you help me put in an IV? Hey, something's going on here. Can you help me come in and just take a look at what's happening? Can you help me? They're crashing. Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? Because if you didn't ask for help at least once, you didn't do your job. And then I would come home and don't ask for help. So
yeah, and the lesson there was like,
that's,
I love that. You can't do your job if you don't ask for help, because we need connection, we need support. So just move that into your own life. We can't be a fully functioning human being if we don't ask for help when we need it. Or even if we don't need it, just ask for help so that you can have the connection with someone and do something together, right? Or even if we don't need it, like I can make my own dinner, but I'm going to ask Christian to make me dinner. Right? Like, I love
but we
it.
all do that, right? In all of our lives, you cannot, I dare anyone to challenge anyone to think of a single life where no help was ever needed.
Yeah. It's not part of the human experience to not need help. Like we're always going to need it.
And yet, why is it so difficult to ask for it?
I don't know.
Especially if you're a woman.
And I also, that brings me back to this idea that like, I've heard this thing about compliments, but I haven't really heard it about help. But like, we're taking away the opportunity from someone else to feel good when we don't ask for help. Because it feels good to help people. We love doing it. We love
shared
helping
experience.
Other people, but we don't want to ask for it. And I don't know why, but we don't. And then we're taking away that opportunity from someone to help us and to make them feel good.
Can I also add that some people don't know how to help?
True.
Like so when you tell them how to help you, they feel good. That's what I'm saying. Like we're giving them the opportunity to feel good. And so sometimes we don't know how to, like somebody will say, well, let me know how I can help you in the coming weeks. You're like, yeah. But then you never let them know how they can help you. But maybe they genuinely don't know how. Like I was really specific when I had my surgery a few years ago with my friends. And I said, I'm going to tell you all how you can help me. I need you all to make Christian and I food. And then they were like, okay, got it. This is what Victoria needs. And then they had like a food tree or whatever. And they had a discussion with them. You're like, Jane's going to drop something off on Monday. Adit's going to drop something off on Tuesday. Lauren's going to drop something off on Wednesday. And like that whole week after, I had lasagnas and soups and food pre-made, frozen or pre-cooked that we didn't have to put together. Right. And it was great. But I told them how to do it too. I mean, they probably would have done it anyways because my friends are amazing. But also like sometimes if you tell someone, they're actually grateful that you've told them how they can help you. And then again, exactly what you're saying, Shadoe, you're giving them the opportunity to help and feel good. Yeah. Okay. I think we could probably keep talking for like 2 more hours. This is already probably one of the longest episodes we've ever had. So we'll have to have you back, Alex, because this was such a good experience. And thank you for being open to celebrating a new experience on your birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you for being open and honest and going deep with us. And I know that those listening stayed with us and stayed in that deepness too, because these conversations are so important to have and so important to be honest about having them, because it just makes us feel not alone. Everything you said, I was like, yep. Right. And I think it's important for us to tell our stories and continue to tell our stories. So thank you. Thank you
for having me, guys. And it's awesome to have, you have a platform where you can talk about this, and that's awesome that you give me the opportunity to share an experience that I hope someone somewhere will go, oh, and it'll maybe a little tiny bit change something for them too.
I think it will change a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to go into our 3 breaths. And this is episode 2 of season 4. And I didn't come up with 3 new breaths in episode 1. So this is the first time we're doing our 3 new breaths for episode 4. So these are the new breaths. So if you want to join in. If you're listening, come on to the front edge of your seats. We're going to finish off with our 3 breaths. If you're driving, of course, you don't need to put your feet flat on the floor. Just participate in those 3 breaths. If you're not driving, put your feet flat on the floor so that you can feel grounded. And if you want, you can place your hand on your heart, taking a big breath in, big exhale out, saying to yourself, May you be well. Second breath, big breath in. Exhale. May you be kind to yourself. Third breath. May you be safe and at ease. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our special guest, Alex, and we hope to have her back again because she was amazing. Thank you to my co-host, Shadoe, and we'll catch you in the next one, everyone.
Thank you,
You
Victoria.
get to say okay, bye with us, Alex, if you want. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadoe Ball and Victoria Burcea. We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
You can become a supporter by donating $3, $5, or even $8 per month at www.letsrelieveregretpodcast.buzzsprout.com and click on the support button. You can find the link in the show notes.
Our goal is to empower as many women as possible to overcome the shame and guilt that accompanies regret.
If this podcast helped you have an aha moment, help us spread the word. It's free for you, and it means the world to us.
Please follow us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
Tell 2 friends.
Or leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Find all this information and more in the show notes. Okay,
Bye.
bye.